What's up, y'all? You're tuning in to the Dedicated Podcast.
Hello, everyone. So it is episode 2 of my US tour. So number 2, like John Wall, and that's perfect because we are in Washington DC, and my guest today is Helen. So her voice might be familiar, and you will quickly understand why. But first of all, how are you, Helen?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for giving me this time in my US tour. So just to clarify, if you did not notice, Helen is the voice introducing all episodes. A lot of people have been asking me, who is it? Is she American? Is she your Maybach music voice? Well, here she is.
It's just little me.
So we are going to talk about several project things, but I wanted to start with asking you 3 questions. They're quite similar, but they're different.
Okay.
So first of all, if you are overseas and people ask you where you're from, what would you say?
It's a really good question. I usually say America.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you, I don't know, potentially let's say you are in San Francisco or whatever city in the US, and someone asks you the same question, where you from, what would you say?
Those are good questions. And my answer does differ from other Ethiopian Eritreans, but I say DC.
Okay. And if you're in Maryland, where you grew up,
Yeah.
and they ask you where you're from, what would you say?
Hyattsville. PG County.
Okay.
Yeah, that's more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's 3 different replies.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just wanted to ask you because obviously we are both from, you're American, I'm Swiss, but we're not originally from this country. And I wanted to see.
What do you say when someone asks you where you're from?
I usually say Switzerland.
Yeah.
When I'm outside Switzerland, and I would say Eritrean if I'm in Switzerland. I even tend sometimes when I'm traveling across the world. Sometimes I don't even say Switzerland because sometimes they don't know where it is, and sometimes I even said France because I speak French, and I'm tired of explaining people that we speak different language in Switzerland. So I would say France, next to France. So that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So the first subject that we'll speak about is more about growing up in the US as a black woman for your case, but in general as well. We know the US from TV. We know the US from all the crazy things happening here. But I wanted to have your perspective first. So you are from what we call the DMV area. Mm-hmm. So for the one who don't know, DMV goes for DC, Maryland, Virginia.
It's a portion of Maryland and a portion of Virginia.
Okay.
But it's 2 counties in Maryland, Montgomery and PG, and then it's like, I think 2 or 3 counties in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever the metro goes is DMV.
Okay, very good. And you grew up in Maryland? You said Hyattsville.
Yeah, I was born and raised I was born and partially raised in DC. I was born at Howard Hospital.
Okay.
Howard University Hospital. And then my parents moved to Hyattsville, which is right outside of DC in PG County, which is a predominantly black county in Maryland. So I just say Maryland because that's where my formative years were. So.
Mm-hmm. And how was it growing up in Maryland? Yeah,
so I grew up so close to DC that I socially and culturally identify with DC way more.
Okay.
So if we went out, let's say the movies, we went to DC. If we wanted to go eat, we went to DC. Like I could walk to DC, and it was more convenient for me to do social activities or hang out with friends, especially because I had a lot in DC to do things in DC. So even though I technically geographically was in Maryland, my social life was all DC. My high school was mostly DC kids who were being pushed out because of gentrification. So Maryland, I really, when people think Maryland, they think of like Baltimore.
Yeah,
I did
true.
not. I knew nothing about Baltimore at all. I didn't even know Baltimore people were so different until I went to college.
Is it a different slang in Baltimore?
Different slang, different accent. I don't even understand them sometimes. We went to college. That was my first experience meeting different Maryland people. And funny enough, we're only 30, 40 minutes away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
But we listen to different music. We listen to go-go. They listen to not bounce beat. It's, I forget what it's called, but club music.
Yeah.
Very different. We have different dances, different slang, and we also say words very differently. So if you watch The Wire, I don't identify with that culture at all. But it's also cool to think about how like we can live so close to each other and can have like completely different cultures, which is why DMV people, when they say where you're from, they say DC because we identify with that more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. And you said that you grew up in a city that was predominant black.
Yeah.
As an Ethiopian in the black, well, how is it to grow in the black community? Because obviously we're also black, but it's a different culture.
Yeah. So Habeshas, which encompasses Ethiopia, Eritrea, most of East Africa, it majority of them tend to populate the same area, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and a lot of Habeshas moved to Silver Spring, which is Montgomery County, or Northern Virginia. And so I was probably one of like a very few Habeshas that grew up in PG County, is short for Prince George's.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting because of that I only identified as black. That's all I really knew because I understood race as you or this or that. It's literally black and white, literally. Yeah. So yeah, your ethnicity is your culture. It's how you were raised and whatever your parents came to America with. But race-wise, I always understood that I was black, and my dad also, raised me as a black person. He taught me black history my whole life. So I just never even knew that there was this idea that we looked different. It just never even crossed my mind. And I only say look different because it's a subgroup of people who don't understand that there's a spectrum of Africans. Mm-hmm. There's not just one look, but it's funny because in high school, right, I was very much a PG County girl. I had the accent. I acted like it. I listened to the music. I used to go out with them. So I never really thought anything of it. But they used to call me Packy in high school.
What does it go for?
I didn't find out till I graduated that it was short for Pakistani.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't realize that everybody in high school thought I was Pakistani. And it wasn't until I graduated and we were doing an interview or something. I think it was prom or something. And they're saying somewhere you from, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm black. I was like, no, you're not. They're like, you're Pakistani. And I was like, you think I'm over here saying the N-word and I'm Pakistani? I am black. I was like, and I didn't understand where it came from, but I realized one, they didn't understand the skin color, like, and not skin color, but like the undertone. Mm-hmm. That was different for them. I guess hair, I don't know. But also my parents' accent. They did not understand that accent.
They couldn't identify.
Yeah, they only knew one kind of African, because we had Africans. Mm-hmm. But they were mostly West African or West Indian. Like, those were the only non-African Americans. So it was like one Habesha per year in my high school, and we were all very much PG County kids. So we just never really said, like, oh, I'm Habesha. Like, it wasn't like this thing to, like, separate ourselves from the rest of the group. So I didn't realize that until I got older. But yeah, I just very much assimilated so much that I didn't really, I would, like, if someone asked me, I would tell them, but I wasn't, like, my number one identifier. Like, mm-hmm. I didn't feel a need to be like, I'm this. Like, it's not that I don't have pride, but I don't need to brag about it, mm-hmm. especially when I'm around a lot of people who are African American and don't, they were robbed of that ability to be like, I'm from X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and growing up, I didn't think anybody knew what PG County was. And then, like, now in culture, like, we see it said in a lot of, like, movies, like Insecure, they talked about PG County. A lot of black movies and shows nowadays talk about it because PG County is the richest black county in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. And so when I got older, I was like, wow, this is something to be really proud of, because I think you assume that black communities are usually impoverished, which is usually the case. PG County is a county where it's not the richest county, but the reason why they call it the richest black county is because the mayor is black.
Okay.
The police departments are like not black, but like people in leadership are black.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know this sounds weird, but racism wasn't something I saw a lot because everybody's black. My neighbors are black. They took care of me. If my parents were working, my African-American neighbor used to take me fishing with him, you know, to watch me while they're working. My other neighbor would pick me up from school. Like, I grew up in a community where everyone looked like me. If I got in trouble, the person reprimanding me looked like me. My principal looked like me. So people were making the rules look like me. So I felt somewhat protected. My first instance of racism wasn't until I was transitioning into college. And that's when I realized I grew up in a bubble, a very privileged bubble, where it's one thing to grow up in a rich environment, let's say, you know, where you go to a great school, whatever, blah, blah, but you're the minority. But there's some things that you have to deal with when you're in that. When I'm growing up in an environment where it was still rich, somewhat rich financially, but like in culture. I definitely grew up in a very lucky bubble. I'll say that much.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good for you. I mean, I don't think it's the case for everyone. So good that you had that opportunity.
Yeah.
So you said that you were a part of that community in PG County. In terms of representation in the media or the culture, how was it? Or could you identify to what you were listening to what you was watching, etc.?
Yeah. So also, just to go back when we were talking about PG County, some notifiable people from PG County that we are constantly told about growing up, which gave us a sense of like, oh, you can make it out, like, you know, and not making out of the hood, because PG County isn't hood. It's hood in a way where it's like everybody has like hood culture, and we're very much black, you know, and we very much had DC culture in us, because a lot of them are people who grew up in DC and moved to Maryland because of DC being gentrified and too expensive to live in. So they were paid out and moved into PG, and PG was more affordable than Montgomery County, but still decent. So like Martin Lawrence, this is from PG County, Kevin Durant from PG County, Maya's from PG County. People are going to kill me because I know I'm probably forgetting a lot of people, but there's a lot of people from PG County, and Wale clearly from PG County, Shy Glizzy from PG County. So you just see all these people who consistently, not just like in one group, but like in different avenues, making out, whether acting, singing, rapping, comedy, basketball, football.
And probably the people that you just mentioned are maybe the biggest.
The biggest, yeah.
So,
and there's more. I'm just not remembering them all. But like when you're constantly seeing that, and not in just like one specific generation, but across like every few years, somebody new making it. It always like motivated us, like, oh yeah, like there's always endless possibilities. And that's another thing. It's like it wasn't struggle that made people feel like they need to figure out a way to make money. It was very much like, yeah, I can do that just because I have this community around me. But you asked me a question. What was that again?
My question was more about but you said, I mean, you kind of replied. It was more about representation.
Yeah.
In the media, in the different cultural art, etc. Did you feel represented? I'm asking that also because growing up as a black man in Switzerland, we are very France influenced because of our language, but we didn't have that. Right. I think the first person presenting the news who was black in France was, I don't know, 2010, 2007. So we didn't have any representation, and my representation through TV was American shows. Yeah.
So we had a lot of representation. And growing up in a predominantly black community, I only listened and watched black things. So black TV shows like Living Color, Living Single, you know, Moesha. Like I watched Black shows because that's what we talked about in school. I listened to Black music because that's what we talked about. That's what we listened to before school, after school. You know, Destiny's Child, Biggie, Jay-Z, like anything that was on the radio, because radio was such a big deal back then. And music was actually good on the radio back then. That's what we were listening to. And we, speaking of representation, we actually have 3 Black radios in the DMV. One technically is Baltimore, so really it's 2, but 95.5 and 93.9 is what we grew up listening to, and it was only hip hop and R&B. That's all you listen to. And we had these channels that we could go back and forth. If one's not playing song we want, we could go to the other 2, and I think you don't realize how big of a deal that is, because it's not till we started driving into different states and we're like, yo, where's the channels? And it's like maybe one, and even then it's like they'll have hip hop hour or like hip hop R&B hour. And I didn't realize how spoiled we were, but again, that's because the DMV is specifically DC and PG County. They call DC Chocolate City.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you.
It was very much Chocolate City, and PG County was an extension of that. So, yeah, you have to, there has to be representation when you have that. So we had Black people on the news, you know, we had Black people in power pretty much, you know, there were Black governors, mayors growing up. So I just did not understand. I was completely oblivious to what was going on in the real world because I literally lived in a Black bubble. Yeah. I did not know it.
I mean, it's funny you talk about radio because till this day, I'm not talking about Black music or whatever, but till this day in Switzerland we don't have hip hop or R&B radio what do you call channel or whatever. Till this day we have, I mean, there was a big show that was on Thursday and Friday evenings, I think, or maybe it was every night, but for 1 hour or 2. But till this day we don't have that. Yeah,
it's hard, especially now the radio isn't listened to a lot. Now it's harder to survive, and even on TV it's like now hip hop is all culture. And so like show, you know, BET used to have 106 Park, like those things haven't survived new culture, so it's difficult. But back then it was a specific audience that was listening to it, and it had to be enough of an audience to have that going live. So, you know, everybody was calling in for tickets to shows and, you know, to like talk to people or when artists would come in. And so yeah, it was easier back then, I think, than now. But
definitely so obviously you went to high school where you grew up, but then I want to speak a little bit about college, or what we would call university. I know it's different here if you say university or college, but let's use college. So first of all, what and where did you study?
So for undergrad I went to University of Maryland, and I studied public health there.
When you say University of Maryland, where is it located?
Oh yeah, it's in College Park. So they have 3 different, I think, 3 or 4 campuses. But I went to the main one in College Park, which is right outside of DC.
Okay, and were you able to pick where and what you wanted to study?
So, and this is actually a good segue probably to your other questions. But it wasn't my number 1 school. I went to that school because it was the best option financially.
And when you say that, what does it mean?
So, as you guys may know, America has a very interesting university payment system where it is very expensive to go to school. And for some people, they have to choose, you know, decisions are based on how much are you going to be able to afford and how much is going to be loans. And for some people, that will make or break whether they go to school or not. So if you are a DC resident, you are allowed to go to any public university around the United States of America. You just pay the difference between in-state and out-of-state tuition. So out-of-state means you're not from that state, so you pay out-of-state tuition to go there. In-state means you're from that state, you pay in-state. And that's because DC does not have a public institution. Everything's private in DC. But by then I was living in Maryland. So, you know, in Maryland, the in-state tuition, I think, was like at that time, like $7,000 a year. And out of state is like I think it was like maybe almost 20K or something like that, which shows you the big jump, right? So even paying the difference is not worth it. You might as well just do in-state. So a lot of people use addresses to just get that in-state tuition. Maryland is a good school. It's a great public university. It's a great research university. I just didn't want to go there because I'm like, everybody I knew was going there, and I don't want to go there. Granted, the high school I went to, most people didn't go there. I think a handful went, but like a lot of people didn't graduate to go to college. So it wasn't necessarily that. A lot of my friends were going to like Howard. If they were going to college, they were going to Howard.
Howard is a black.
Yeah, Howard University.
Black university.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you can find them across the country, or it's only
no, it's just one. So Howard University is like the most popular HBCU. HBCU stands for Historically Black College or University.
Okay.
I think this is what the CU stands for, I think, but historically black is the main part you need to know. And so I know this is controversial, but Diddy went to Howard. And so him giving back, especially to their homecoming, is what made Howard even more popular. And so every homecoming, he would throw like Yard Fest, which is like a huge event where artists would come in and he would pay for the whole thing. It would be free. And we would go every year, and it was so much fun. People from all over the U.S. would fly in just for Howard homecoming. So it's a fun competition between Howard and Hampton University. I think those are two big ones that compete. And then Spelman and Morehouse are also two very prestigious HBCUs. But those four, I mean, I'm sure there's more, but those are the four that we hear the most of. And they're probably better than University of Maryland. Actually, they are better. Like, that's how great they are as schools, because they take some of the best of the best to go there. And they really hone in on their people. And so I wanted to go there. Howard actually lost my application, so I didn't end up going, but I wasn't going to go anyway.
Wait.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I don't want to make them look bad, but I know. I was like, you know what? Maybe that's a sign. I was like, I'm not going there. But also, it was expensive. It's a private school.
Okay.
And my dad was like, "You're not paying more than a certain amount." And it was a whole thing in the house, because my number one school was George Washington University, which is in DC. I really wanted to go there. I liked the look of the campus, but I'm 17 and I just wanted to go there. Like, I had no real reason why I wanted to go there, but I wanted to go. And at that time, GW was the most expensive university in the United States of America.
Wow.
And it's not even Ivy League.
Yeah.
And my dad they gave me more money than Maryland did, University of Maryland. And even then, it was still, the amount I was going to have to take out loans was crazy. My parents can't afford to pay my tuition. That's crazy. And my dad told me no. And I remember I was livid. It was a whole thing in the house. And now looking back, I'm like, thanks, because I would have been swimming in debt. But just to be down the street from my parents' house. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. You do have to really make decisions based on how much you can take out in loans. And I think a lot of times parents are letting their kids decide for themselves, which I understand. They're of age, they should decide, but like, we don't understand loans and credits at that time. And I would have went to GW, and I forget how much it was a year, but by the end I would have graduated. It would have been almost 100K in tuition and all the payments of like room and board and food and all that, like for undergrad. And I'm gonna be real, undergrad to me is not worth spending that much at all. It does not matter, really. Undergrad doesn't hold a lot of weight where you go. Some schools higher than much, but it really doesn't make a difference at that point. Grad school, I think, matters more at that point. And so I'm grateful my dad forced me not to go. But yeah, it's tuition is it's interesting. So yeah, I ended up going to University of Maryland. And I forget what your initial question was. I'm rambling.
No, that's fine. Basically, I wanted to maybe tell us how you made that choice, but you just said you just explained it, and how the loan work. Is it one loan that you get for how long is the undergrad?
Undergrad is 4 years, and it's not usually one loan. I mean, it depends how much you want to take out, right? Okay. And how much you're willing to pay and how much the school is going to pay you. So when I went to Maryland, I think the school covered, I would say like 90% with like grants and scholarships. And then but like 10% was left that had to be paid in either loans or you. It's up to you how you want to divvy that up. And they'll also they always offer you an amount enough to cover everything, right? You decide what you want to take. So you always accept the grants and scholarships because you don't have to pay that back. Then you decide on like what's left over, if you want to take loans or not. And most people, it's easy to be like loans, especially if you don't understand, loans and interest and all that stuff, which most of us don't at that time. But my dad paid, I forget how much he was paying per year for me, but it was like $5,000 a year he would contribute. And then the rest, I did a loan. And then my last 2 years, I did like a work program where I would work on campus and that would pay towards it instead of taking out a loan. So I didn't really have any loans in undergrad. Again, thanks to my dad. I did have loans in grad school. That's a different story.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But about the scholarship. Yeah. So that's money that the school pays for you, but you don't have to pay them this back.
Yeah, and they're not necessary. Sometimes they're school, and sometimes scholarships are from the school, unless you apply to scholarships outside. And they tend to be really tedious. And I'm going to be very honest, I was pretty lazy. And I was just happy to have graduated and been done with everything. And I was like, I'm not about to do more homework and apply to these scholarships because it's a lot of essays and work, sometimes for a few K. And they made it really hard to apply back then. And it wasn't like you could easily research. Like you really had to like go to the office and find out the scholarships back then. Whereas now you can just Google scholarships and some of them are easy, some of them are not. And there's just way more resources now than there were back then. But yeah, the loans and scholarships are usually multiple and you decide which ones you want to take.
And so you said that obviously your dad helped you for these decisions, but is it something that people, the schools explain in class?
No.
Okay.
Nope. And it's actually it's a conversation that's sometimes brought up, not enough actually. Financial literacy is something that should be talked about in high school, especially in a country where loans is a huge topic, even in the whole campaign, the presidency campaign. That is what both sides have been talking about a lot, because it is a huge issue. You will pay back loans for years and barely be touching your actual loan amount. You're paying interest for the most part. And so if people were more educated in high school, I think we would make better decisions, or at least someone helping us when we're deciding. I think that would be helpful, but it just doesn't make sense. It's almost like the government wants a cut of these loans. I'm like, why would you not prepare people if you feel like they are scamming? Because they get sued. Like one of the loans I did take out money from an undergrad got sued for basically, I think, mishandling how they were giving information to us about paying back loans, something along those lines. So some of our loans got forgiven because of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not a lot. Not for me, not a lot. It was very small. But yeah, these loan companies really are just sitting here just waiting to give you money, knowing that you can't pay back. And they're just going to get way more in return.
And for your undergrad, we were talking about undergrad and the second
grad school.
Grad school.
Yeah.
You had to take more loans.
Yeah, grad school is harder to get scholarships for. That's where you really have to apply yourself. And so I went to a school that does not really give many scholarships. And again, rightfully so, they're at Ivy League, so that I think they just feel like, oh, we're that school, so you're lucky. Yeah, pretty much. They gave me a little bit, not very much. So the first year, luckily, I worked for a company that was really nice prior that gave me a grant that paid for part of I don't remember if it was part of the first year or the full first year. But this school was so expensive that even with that, I still took out a lot of loans for that second year. Yeah. And
those loans, so you're still paying them?
Absolutely.
And are they affecting decisions in your life today?
They should. They should. You know what I do? I almost treat it like a bill. I'm just like, this got to be paid anyway. I put it in auto pay.
It's not your phone bill.
Yeah, no,
it's
I I treat it like that, and I'm like, I pay exactly what I'm supposed to pay. I used to pay way more because I was like, I can't wait. I want financial freedom. But I'm like, I'm at a point now, and it's becoming a bigger topic in the government. I'm like, there might be a chance, hopefully, one day where this will be forgiven. And if you overpay, it's not like they're going to go back and give you that money back. So I'm like, you know what? I'm paying the bare minimum. I don't care if I'm paying this forever. I'm paying the bare minimum because I forget the rule, but it's like if you pay after a certain number of years, it's either forgiven or it's stopped, something along those lines. If you work for not nonprofit, but it's like I forget, it's certain rules. So I'm just like, I'm going to just do that. I have no intentions of paying that full amount back at all. I'm just like, they know it's a scam. We know it's a scam. All of it's a scam. So I'm like, I'm just doing it so I don't get in trouble. My credit doesn't get hurt. And they do things where you can apply for, I forget what it's called, but it's basically where they'll adjust how much you pay per month based on how much you make, the bills you currently already have. So it's reduced, but it doesn't impact the interest too much. So you're still paying more in interest. But yeah, so it doesn't, the way I see it is like, oh, I'll just make more money. So that doesn't hurt my day to day. But I'm like, I'm not going to let these loans. There's some people who literally will just not do anything, won't eat, like out, don't have fun. But I'm like, to me, especially after COVID, I've realized I'm like, life is short. I'm not about to let loans impact my day to day.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. Well, it's not about being funny, but we have such a different situation in Switzerland. I mean, school, it costs nothing. I think I was paying $1,000 a year. I was going to to the university in my city, and it was $1,000 a year, and that's it. And obviously the books, etc. But we're so lucky about
that's how
this.
it should be, though. I think. I think it almost is a business now, and I think the older I got, I realized college is a business, and it makes me wonder, like, you know, I get it. My parents they moved here, so they just only knew what they were being sold. But I think the older we're getting, especially the more educated we're getting, and I don't mean educated like book, I mean educated in the world, especially with social media and all this access. I think we're realizing, like, some people are questioning, like, is college really that necessary? Is paying those loans to go to that big name really necessary? I will say grad school set me up for success, but I intentionally picked a school with a name that would take me to the next level. So I was like, it was worth that investment. But undergrad, I didn't do nothing for me. Like, I think the only thing I learned was how to work in groups, you know, when I go into work. Like, group projects is the biggest lesson I learned. That's it. I can't tell you anything else I took away from it. Nowadays, some of the most successful people, granted, some of them come from well-to-do families, but, like, aren't college graduates, you know? So it's interesting. People are just getting certificates and, like, they're getting supplemental degrees and making great careers without the college degree now. So it's an interesting thing. Like, I always ask myself as a parent, would I force my kid to go to college? I don't know if I would.
Well, that's true that college is, we don't have that in Switzerland, but college is really like a culture here. I mean, we wouldn't look at someone the same way if they didn't go to college. Yeah. When we don't have that. Well, we have different options, so it's a bit more flexible in terms of choice. But here, I feel like you're failure.
They sell it as an experience. Like, that's why there's dorms. Like, these dorms are gross when you really think about it. Like, they look old. They look like jail. Like, my dorm looked like a jail cell. The walls were like cement with paint on it. Like, and it's two of us in a room. Like, it's cramped, but it made you feel like my parents lived maybe 10 minutes from campus, but I felt like I was supposed to live on campus. I had to. I was like, that is part of the experience. Otherwise, why am I doing this?
And if you could redesign some decisions related to undergrad and grad, would you do something differently in terms of choices, loan choices? I'm not saying about what you studied, but more.
I think I will say this. I'm very lucky that I accidentally made the right choices, even as far as taking time between undergrad and grad school and the school that I chose for grad school. The only thing I might think twice about was I would have prepared for grad school a little bit more and applied to more scholarships. I didn't even know if I was going to go or not. I just applied, very last minute. I took the test last minute. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of doing it, and I didn't think I was going to get into that school. I just winged it, and then I did 2 interviews for the program. Still didn't think I was going to get it. So when I got it, I thought I was going to another school, which was going to be free, because I worked for that. I worked for Johns Hopkins, so I thought I was going to go there for free, but I didn't like the program that I was going to be in because it had to be in the program that I worked in. So when I got in there, I was just like, oh, I didn't apply any scholarships. So I don't have any money. But I'm grateful because I'm like, as you know, I lived in New York for 8 years. I would have never did that, and I didn't even think I wanted to live in New York. I hated the idea of New York. I was like, ew, it's dirty, it's scary. I liked being home. I liked comfort. I wasn't even a traveler at that time. I would have never met you, actually. So, yeah, I think honestly, I think things happened exactly how they were supposed to. But
that's a perfect transition because we are going to talk about New York now. So you've been living in New York for a few years. We all have our perspective of New York, and I'm talking about from a European perspective. So we picture it as a great city where everything is possible. Honestly, I think that New York is probably the best picture of the US in the world. That's what we all know. But how is it living in New York? Because when we come for a week or for the one that won't stay that would stay longer, how is it to live there in terms of cost of life, housing, and all that?
So I lived in New York for 8 years, and then I moved maybe 4 or 5 times. So I started in Harlem for grad school, and luckily I was very lucky that I had cheat codes. So I was hanging out with people also who moved there. So we're all figuring out New York together. It was not as big of as an adjustment as it would be for someone who just moved there, because it's almost like going to like high school. Like we're kids, you're just like figuring out. So we're going out together for the first time. We're meeting people for the first time. Some people are from New York or live in New York already in the program. So we're all following them. So I got to gradually learn New York with other people in a big group at that. I would say though, and I had some friends too that moved there, so I got to be friends with their friends. So that I had a very easy transition. I was very, very grateful for that because I know a lot of people who struggle when they first move there. New York is big, but you could feel very isolated and very alone really easily. And I always tell people before you move, plan it out well and make sure you have people there, because it can be very lonely if you don't know anyone. And I warn everyone, and I've seen a lot of people move there and move back very quick, because it's expensive for no reason. It's like, don't move there just because you see social media and it looks cool. It's not that cool all the time.
Breathing is not free in New York.
Exactly. It really is not. But after I graduated, I moved to East Village, which is like in the middle of everything. So it's like, close to Soho, not far from West Village. I was like walking distance to Union Market. So I was walking distance to every party, every event. And I did that intentionally because I was still in my 20s and I wanted to have fun, and I'm now making money and it was close to my job. And I made more new friends, and a lot of them, had connections that I was like, this is what being in New York is about. I'm now friends with people who can get me into a party or a concert or an event with people that I never thought would be in the same room or at a party standing next to, rubbing shoulders. But I will say at the same time, it makes you realize that social media is not real. I learned that very quickly. I was like, oh, you're actually broke. 2 million followers does not mean you have money. Just because you're a celebrity with a whole bunch of chains does not mean you're doing super well. And I'm not going to say no names, but I'll never forget when this one rapper asked me to call him an Uber. And I looked at him like, you want my broke ass? I just finished college. I just started working to call you an Uber, and your chains cost more than my rent. Yeah,
that's crazy. I need to know the name of afterwards.
Offline. But yeah, I just it was a lot of interesting experiences. So it was it was fun. I was exposed to a lot. My personality, even me as a person, I grew a lot through living in New York, because it's a big city and you grow up really fast, and you have to really be diligent and like careful and cautious too at the same time. But like, it's a fine line between like playing kind, but also, you know, creating boundaries for yourself, because it is a city of like, take care, you care for yourself, and that's it.
Survival mode.
Yeah, it's your survival, exactly. It's concrete jungle, you know, or my dad likes to call it asphalt wilderness, because he always messes it up, but it's concrete jungle. But my favorite area I lived in was Brooklyn. I loved Brooklyn because I didn't need to go to Manhattan. Like, everything is there that you needed. If you want, you could go there sometimes, but you had nature. We could go to the park, you know, it was great restaurants, but like, people who enjoyed being in multicultural spaces, for the most part, lived in Brooklyn. It was very diverse. Manhattan's very segregated, so there's pockets, and there is in Brooklyn too, but like, Manhattan's way more obvious. Like, West Village is a type of group, Hell's Kitchen is a type of group, Lower East Side is a very specific type of group. So these types of people, Upper East Side, that live in these different areas, whereas Brooklyn, it's like, it's all in one place, and I like that a lot more. And just culturally, like, it was more fun in Brooklyn, so I think that was my favorite and last stop before I left.
Well, sounds like you liked New York.
I did, but I will say, I realized that I was like, I miss having a car. I missed, you know, being able to go to the grocery store and not having to decide how much can I fit in 2 bags, because I'm going to have to walk it back home. And like, I missed just comfort and convenience. I miss my parents. You know, I was getting older, and I felt like this was great in my 20s. And I think, you know, if I had a lot of money, it'd be great, and I could buy a brownstone and have a backyard and like do that. But I was just tired of living in a closet.
So you moved back to DC. And what made you move back? So you mentioned a few things. You wanted to be back to, closer to your family, to a simple life. You wanted to drive.
Yep. Even though I still don't drive a lot, but
but is it all the things that made you decide to come back, or did you feel that, okay, I'm done with New York? Is it the price of everything that made, or maybe it's all over what I just mentioned? Yeah.
So my job is still New York, so I get paid New York income. But even then, I think it was an article that came out that said, to live comfortably in New York, you need to make $100K, right? That's comfortably. And that's if you are still living in a way where it's reasonable. We don't live reasonable anymore. It's too much access. We Uber Eats multiple times a week. We take Ubers, you know. Like, when I first moved to New York, we would take the train. We'd go to the club on the train, and we took the train back after the club. That was the norm, because Uber wasn't around and taxis were ridiculous. So the trains would be packed. It was fun, actually. 4 a.m. on the train, and it's like people from all different areas. Like, it wasn't a wealth thing. It was like, that was the means of transportation. Then Ubers came, and it's like, now the trains are scary at night because there's no one really on it. So you might go to a party, and it's like $100 to go back home.
Wow.
That's a real thing. And I don't want to tell you how many times I've paid between $60 and $100 for Uber back home. And I'm just, those things, I'm just like, what am I doing? After COVID also, they called it like the great exodus. A lot of people moved because people started working remote. And so people were like, well, what's the point? I can live further away now. So people moved upstate. Some people moved to Jersey. A lot of people moved to LA because people were getting married or getting relationships, and they wanted more space. LA has bigger apartments. It's expensive, but not as bad as New York. So a lot of people were moving, and a lot of my closer friends were all over that. I was just like, I don't think it'd be that big of a deal. And I tried LA actually for 6 months. In 2020 or 2021, I liked it a lot, but not enough to move. My sister lives there. My best friend lives there. So I was like, you know what? I think DC is best. And also, you know, I'm first generation, older daughter. I was like, I think it's time to settle down. And I feel like if I want to settle down, I would like to be ideally closer to my parents. So DC just made more sense.
Okay, very good. Um, and I mean, now you've been in DC for a few years. Happy of your choice?
I am actually. I've made friends here that I didn't think I was going to make that I really love. And that some of them are actually from New York. We moved around the same time. Didn't really know each other until we got here. So I feel like I have a little extension of New York still. And DC's really changed now where there's a lot of restaurants and like cocktail bars that I would like to go to. Like I'm a food snob a little bit. So I found that as a fun thing to do if I want to hang out with friends and things like that. And there's some nightlife stuff. That's still an area that I'm like, it's okay, cool. It's not like my favorite thing, but I could see it potentially changing. But also I'm like, I'm done with that anyway. So I'm like, I'm not that pressed. But I am happy to be back. But I wasn't prepared for me being back and the extra pressure now being close to family. They're just they think I'm on
that
call.
That comes with it.
They think I'm on call 24/7.
I mean, you're 15 minutes away.
I know, but I'm like, I have a job. I work.
Well, we all go through that.
Yeah.
That transition now is less logical as the one we had before. I want to speak about presidential. Because obviously Trump got elected a few weeks ago, and we look at it from a European perspective. Personally, and no disrespect to anyone, but I look at it like a reality show because I see crazy things. Maybe you do too, I don't know. But first of all, how did you feel about the candidate choices that you had?
So
let's talk only about the final choices.
Yeah, the final choices for sure. Yeah. I originally it was Joe Biden, and I was not really happy about that because I think we've as a culture, at least in America, don't really watch news or TV like that. So I think people haven't really seen some of his him talking. Yeah. And I remember one day I watched him randomly talking, and I'm like, is he there? Like, I didn't feel like he was there.
Yeah.
And I was like, this guy's about to run for president. This is late last year. And I was like, this is crazy. There's no way he can run. And then when he dropped out, there was rumors because it was dementia or something along those lines. But I was just like, yeah, it has to be. And I'm like, that could have been the person running, which I think is ridiculous. And Trump would have definitely won. It would have been an easy race, I think. Or maybe not. I don't know, because he's a white man versus white man. So, but for the younger crowd, I think it would have been a harder. And let me be very clear. A lot of people don't like Biden, but he did do a lot of things in office that are not always told. People only know what's yelled off the mountaintops, right? So people only know what happens when it's on social media. But he's done some things. I don't agree with everything Joe Biden does, but I've realized that I don't agree with any politician, right? Because politicians are like salesmen. But Kamala, I think, was a better candidate to get younger people. But I've known Kamala when she was the director general in California before Obama appointed her as the federal director or something, anyways. But even before that, and I didn't really care for her because I didn't like how she handled adolescent youth in the Bay, where she would basically, if you were skipping school, like high school, they would arrest you. And there's a lot of research where if you put somebody in prison, right, then they become now a product of that. Like that becomes their norm. And if you're doing that to kids that young, especially when they're that young and they think it's cool to do that and they know they're going to get out, now you're desensitizing them to what prison or jail is like. And so you're opening that door, I feel like. And I just didn't think that was a way to deal with something like skipping, when a lot of times the root problem is parents are working. They can't watch their kids. True. It's income. It's a lot of other thing, lack of resources. So I'm like, I just felt like it was a very lazy but harsh approach. And so I never really cared for her after that. I never liked her. Even as VP, I don't even know what she did in office. And she probably did do stuff, I just don't know. But I will say her team did a great job selling her, because I re-liked her, but I re-liked her in a way where I'm like, and this is how I've learned to vote now. I just pick the lesser of two evils because I'm like, the person that I would ideally want to vote for is never going to win anyway. Like a Bernie Sanders, for example. So that is why I voted for, but I didn't really care for her, and clearly I don't care for Trump either. But it's interesting. The reason why Trump gets so much support is because he is transparent, he is, and he also speaks the language of the average American. And that's what a lot of these politicians do not understand, which is why he beat out all these other Republicans, and they can't understand because they are literally living and breathing politics when they were kids. They like grew up wanting to be president. Trump literally woke up one day and was like, I'm gonna run for president. Literally. And what he did that they couldn't get right, where Kamala had to hire young people to help her with her social media to do, is he speaks directly to the average American. And he speaks in a way where they completely understand what he's saying. Whether it makes sense, whether it's racist, whatever the case may be, he's saying it and he's like, I'm unapologetic when I say it. And the average American doesn't understand politics. They don't understand the process behind passing a law or how to get things, across. And so all they care about is the promises that you're giving. And so Trump does that, And it's interesting when I talk to a lot of non-American friends, or even American friends too, people like Trump from a financial economic standpoint, which I get it, right? Stock's great. Yeah, wonderful. I benefited too, but it's like at what cost too, because Project 20, everybody I've spoken to that was like, I'm not voting for Kamala. And I'm like, by way of saying that you're voting for Trump, whether or not, or you are voting for Trump. And I always ask them, because they love to, nowadays people want to be the I don't know what to call it, but everybody wants to like go against the grain. But I'm like, you're really not, because you are doing what everybody else is doing, which is saying, I'm not voting for Kamala. But I ask why, and those list things that you read on social media or somebody spewed randomly about Kamala. Let's say, for example, the whole Gaza situation. Completely understand that, right? But have you studied what Trump said about it? Have you listened to what Trump was? And it was crazy. Each one had never heard what Trump said. He literally said, turn Gaza into a beach resort. And I'm like, you're mad at her not talking about this, right? But you're not mad at him talking about it the way that he did. It doesn't make sense to me. Also, Project 2025 is a whole initiative that they're going to roll out. That's 100% backed by him. He talks about it all the time. Crazy that none of these people, younger people, even knew what it was. One of them, for example, is abolishing abortion, right? After a certain date. And whether you agree or disagree with elective abortion, that's one thing, completely different. I'm not even going to argue with that. Let's separate that. But like what a lot of people don't understand, and because it only affects a minority of folks, is people have abortions for multiple reasons. It's not just, I had sex unprotected and then I got pregnant. People have abortions because they are raped. Kids have abortions because they are raped by a family member. People have abortions because the baby's not going to survive, and now it's in a certain area where now the mom's not going to survive. There have been cases, because I think Georgia and Texas were the only states that have already abolished it prior, where doctors had to stand by and watch a mom pass away because they couldn't give her an abortion because it was already past a certain week date. There was a doctor in Texas that went to trial because she gave a rape victim an abortion. So I'm like, you guys, it just killed me that people are thinking they're informed when you're just selectively informed. It's lazy research to me. And I'm like, if you're going to make a decision, make sure you read both sides. But anyways, it was a very frustrating process. It was a lot of conversation with friends that we had, and it really showed me how people are so, they think they're being different, but you're really easily swayed by any clickbait or any number that you see on an Instagram post.
I think the Trump team were really good at doing clickbait, and
for sure.
And honestly, from what I've been watching, him going to Joe Rogan podcast, that was great move.
I'm glad you brought that up, because this is where Kamala failed. She should have went on that podcast. He invited her. She didn't go. Because during the day of voting, And mind you, I'm going to be real. I was shocked that he won. I didn't think he was going to win. She didn't even win popular vote. That shocked.
Mm-hmm.
They asked a whole bunch of people in line. There's a lot of people who were on the fence. She missed out on a lot of young votes by not doing that. And I remember there was a few separate people who were like, I didn't really know who to vote for. And there's a lot of people who didn't know who to vote for. And a few of them had said, she didn't go on Joe Rogan podcast, so I voted for Trump.
Yeah, that's crazy to say that.
And I'm like, you are not above. The new generation of people are easily swayed. They're easily swayed. And that's a thing. That's a difference between somebody who was trained to be a politician, her, and that's somebody who's like, I speak whatever I want to speak. But there's also something dangerous with that, because we have now found that they can say whatever they want and they will not be reprimanded. That man is a felon. He's a felon who is now, he's the first felon president, I'm sure. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know all our presidents, but I'm pretty sure he's the first felon president. And I believe he can probably take away his felony. And felons can't even vote.
No, they can't. They can't.
Make it make sense.
And if I'm not wrong, felons cannot hang out with other felons.
I don't even know. Probably. I'm like, at the very least, he better be an advocate for felons. Like, now that you're a felon, you need to do something for them.
But that's funny. You talked about how Trump was speaking to the average American, and I've seen that the former French president Nicolas Sarkozy. So, I mean, I don't really agree with most of the things this former president was saying, but he said something very interesting. He said that Kamala Harris was talking to the Black community, the Mexican community, the Latino community, the Asian community, the Arab community, when Trump was talking to the Americans. And that's a very interesting way to look at it, because I also agree she should have gone to Joe Rogan. Instead of that, she went to what's his name? Shannon. What's the name of this show? Shannon Sharp?
She went there? I didn't even... Yeah,
she went there.
I don't know why
she went to All the Smoke, etc. So she had very targeted...
you already won that audience.
Exactly.
And you know what they do? Up until time to vote, you know what she did? She spent all her time in the States where the average Americans are. But I'm like, you can only do so much there. This is the quickest way to get the rest of them. Like, in those states, you're now talking to older people, older average American. It's the younger average American that you also have to still win, because now this new generation of young people are not easily swayed. They don't really fall for the whole Democrat, Republican, bipartisan, like, propaganda. Like, that's a thing of the past. So it is a lot harder for politicians nowadays. And Trump cracked that code. He was just like, I'm going to be me. And you going to like it because I be on Twitter and I be on TikTok and I know everything. And I make funny jokes.
And I hang out with Elon Musk now.
Exactly. Like, I mean, I will say this. Trump is a comedian. Like, I will not take that away from him. But I will say this, though. Because we failed to realize, and I also failed because I grew up in a bubble. I grew up in the DMV area, blue. Maryland's a blue state. DC's a blue state. Virginia sways, but it's been blue in the last few years, or last few elections. New York, blue. And when I say blue, that means Democrat. So I've never, even California, I've never been in areas that I've been remotely Republican that I don't realize that the majority of U.S. is red. And they did a heat map. A heat map is basically where it shows you, you know what a heat map is? Yeah, okay. And they did a heat map to see, like, the votes based on education. And college degree and up, voted Kamala. College degree below, no college degree, voted for Trump. And what is the majority of America? Not college educated, you know? And so and Bernie, actually, the first day after we found out, he wrote a whole thing about where we failed. And I agreed with him. And people were like, oh, this is not the time, blah, blah. It is a time. It's absolutely a time. It's time to figure out the lessons learned.
Of course. It's too late
lessons
now.
learned, yeah. And guess what? Even if he did say all this before, which I'm sure he has, no one listens to him. He's an independent now.
I'm so sad about him because he was maybe your last, the best shot you have for the last 12 years, maybe more,
Yeah.
since, well, I don't know where he was while Obama was president because I was not really focusing on that, but he was the best shot from my perspective.
Oh, he is. And I think that's why he went independent now. He's not Democrat.
Yeah.
He's independent because Democrats, they're still afraid of him. He's too real. Like, he listed all of the things that they, as a Democratic group, should have done to win over that group of people that they completely missed on, that they thought, oh, we definitely have that group because they're below this age and they are educated and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, that's not how it works anymore. We're not blind loyal because you're black. That's like a thing of the past.
Exactly. Do you feel like Trump won or Kamala lost?
I think Kamala lost. I'm going to be real. I think it was a lot of people that didn't vote this year. A lot. And I'll be honest, I didn't vote last election because I knew Biden was going to win because Trump was just so hated after January 6th that Biden was going to win no matter what. And if he didn't win, I was going to punch myself for not voting. And I told myself I'm not doing that again because it is my civic duty. And also I would hate for something to happen and be like, it's a whole bunch of people who would think the same, right? And we could have made a difference. So I do make sure I vote. But I think Kamala lost because I think it was a lot of people who were just like, I don't like her. I don't like what she stands for. I don't understand what she's saying. She's selling me the same things that all the other presidents sold me that I didn't see any difference on. And Trump is different. And also what they don't realize is, yeah, Trump gave us some money during COVID. But like, that wasn't Trump. Trump just had to be in office. So what did he really do? I think people are still holding on to that they completely forgot about all the crazy things he did. But the way I see it, I'm like, you know what? Let's prove them right or wrong, but hopefully wrong, while he's in office and see what actually happens. Because I foresee, based on what I read on that Project 2025, which I tell everybody to read and just be informed on it, because they won the House and the Senate, which is scary. It's a lot of changes that would impact us, but especially our kids. Yeah. And I don't think people understand that until things happen. So
I asked you if you think that Trump won or Kamala lost, because I feel that the Democrats or whoever we want to blame, they feel so bad each time they brought a woman. In my opinion, I don't know, but back then, nobody thought Trump would be elected the first time. Nobody.
Yeah.
But I feel like I was a bit frustrated to see Hillary being against him. And this time they had Kamala.
Yeah.
I'm not saying but Kamala is a bad choice. I'm saying that at that moment, shifting candidate in June or July.
Yeah.
So I feel the Democrats have really failed those two elections just by poor decisions.
It's interesting. It's two parts, right? Like Hillary actually won the popular vote, which means that majority of people actually voted for her. But it's that whole electoral college vote thing that made Trump win. She could have won that, actually, technically speaking. I think she was the first candidate where people were like, stop selling propaganda. Like that hot sauce in the bag. That was the first time I was like, I really don't like this lady. Like, girl, you went on the Breakfast Club and studied something Beyonce said because you're like, I got to keep the black vote. That was the first time when we started seeing that is a failure. Stop doing that. And I think that's, again, Trump didn't win. Democrats lost. That was that. They were too focused on the young vote, thinking that was the majority. With Kamala, honestly, I think she was a pretty good candidate. I think her team did a really good job from June to now for how much they did. I think the issue was maybe she didn't have enough time to prepare a whole bunch of things she wants to do. Exactly. I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is. I think also a lot of people did not vote. Yeah. A lot of people did not vote due to specific international, decisions. Understandable, but again, that was an irresponsible decision. I've had a lot of conversations with friends. Even as me, as a first gen, I get it, but irresponsible because again, lesser of two evils. If you think she doesn't care, you really think he cares. Like it has to make sense. Like I just need people to use better deductive thinking. Like it really actually mind boggled me. And I was trying not to judge friends, but I was just like, you cannot be so hard on one party and then light on another. It doesn't work that way. You got to be hard on both and then decide which one is better. That is how we work. And that's how bipartisan works. It's never, either one's never really that great. They really don't care about you. They care about themselves. They're just telling you whatever to hire them. It's like an interview. They're interviewing with us and we're just picking the best candidate for the role. So it was a lot of missed votes. And that's why I say Kamala lost, because I think she could have if she did certain things differently. I think she really could have done, I think, better than Hillary, to be very honest, because she understands the culture a lot more. Even the way she hired her team, what they did to rebrand her, 10 out of 10. To the point I forgot why I hated her. I could not remember for a second. Yeah. So,
I mean, they did the best they could do in the 3-4 months they had. But I have a question for you. If Hillary Clinton was elected, have you ever realized that from 1989 until 2020, you would have had only 3 families president? You would have had the Bush, the Clinton, and Obama.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that
2 Bush and 2 Clintons.
Exactly. It's crazy to think that way. Out of 400, how many people in the US? 400 million?
I don't even know. A lot. Yeah, it's actually got crazy. And then Trump.
And now with Trump, he's doing
who's
it twice.
Back
but
again.
No, but that's why also I feel that they could have done better in 2016, because I feel that since 2015 we kind of tired seeing the same faces, and it was easier before with social media, without social media.
Yeah,
but we tired seeing the same faces. And in France, the former president Sarkozy tried, he failed. I don't know about the other countries in Europe, but I don't think I've ever seen a president being elected, leaving and coming back, except Russia. With Putin, but that's a different discussion here.
We had that, but I think it was like years ago, like 1900s or 1800s. They've had presidents who left.
Yeah, of course, back.
But now, especially after his track record, never in a million years.
And from your perspective, what looks worse, the first time he got elected or this time?
Second. Because the first time, actually, it's a good question, because I was really shocked the first time, but I understand people were fed up, right? Yeah. Even Black people were fed up. Like we had so many high expectations with Obama, and like I don't hate the guy, but there was a lot that didn't happen.
It was good for the representation,
and that's what I explain to people. I'm like, he had to do enough, but also not too much, where he didn't tarnish his brand. He's the first. He had to keep the door cracked for people, because otherwise, if he became radical, they'd be like, no more Black people through this door. It would have been donezo. So, and Joe Biden cracked the door for Kamala. Like, she was never going to be in there if it wasn't for him. So, and that's also what cracked the door for her running for president, like him. If it wasn't for him, no way. He gets to choose, So, I get it, but I think it really is the second time, because he showed us January 6th and how he handled that, right? Which was crazy. People died. You thought you could literally go into a government official building and do that. It, to me, is mind-boggling. And you said stand down instead of reprimanding those people. Even just how he speaks about people and events, it's just like, and then the felony and then the touching of women. Like, it's just so many things. I'm just like, I'm scratching my head. I'm like, but then I realize, I'm like, people only listen to what they want to hear,
Very true.
So I will say this. I was shocked the first time, because I remember I went to sleep, and because I thought there was no way he's going to win. It didn't even cross my mind, and I woke up in shock that he won. And I guess I was less shocked this time, but I don't know if I was less shocked, because I really didn't think he's going to win. I didn't think a felon was going to win.
Well, sorry to tell you that, but he's back very, very soon.
I know. Can't believe it.
Helen, I think we went through all the subjects I wanted to talk about. I don't know if there is anything else. a statement or
I
any.
talked a lot.
Nah, you fine. So we'll go to the final questions
Okay.
that are similar for all guests. So the first one is, if you had the opportunity to spend 1 hour with a personality, who would it be?
Dave Chappelle.
Who's from the DMV too?
He is from the DMV. He's from Silver Spring, but went to high school in DC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Duke Ellington. Shout out to Duke Ellington. Great art school for Black folks in DC.
Why Dave Chappelle? Is it because of his comedian talent or his life choices?
All of the. I don't know about life choices.
I mean, I meant professional choices.
Honestly, it's very few people in the world that I actually respect opinion wise, and it's really hard to keep my attention actually. And Dave Chappelle is one of those few people, and I respect him so much that I would listen to his thought process about almost anything, and I love his comedic approach in explaining things. And he's not just a comedian; he also is an activist, you know, and who's can eloquently with comedy make really amazing points, right? When the whole, and I don't want us to touch on it, but the whole trans and gay situation happened in one of his comedy shows, they tried to cancel him. What did he do? He doubled down and explained in a very comedic way, right? Why and what, you know, and explain the problem and how the approach is. Not necessarily them, right? It's not an issue with anybody. It's just the approach of how things are happening. And the downfall, right? And whether I agree or don't agree, I can 100% appreciate the way he thinks and how he explains it. And for me, it's I don't follow or listen to people that I 100% agree. I follow and listen to people who open my mind, right? And make me think from a different perspective and POV. Because I can't be fully equipped enough to argue a point if I don't know all sides of it, right? The opposite, the same side, all that. But anyways, and on top of that, there's nobody that makes me laugh more than Dave Chappelle. I've seen I can't tell you how many shows I've went to in person, and I don't even like going to shows like that.
No, he's hilarious. I think he probably in my top 3.
Oh yeah.
Your song of the moment.
My song of the moment is probably one of my favorite songs because I listen to it in the morning, usually when I start working. It's called Hold On by The Internet.
Okay.
I love that song.
Any IG page you want to recommend?
Yeah, so the IG page, it was a few I was thinking about, but this one is one that I really enjoy looking at, and I actually read the caption.
Okay.
I don't read captions, but I read this one because it explains the pictures. But it's called in.hair.itance, and it's basically an Instagram page where they have all these archive photos from first time a camera was invented, and they display different hairstyles and the history behind it from different cultures, all different cultures all over the world. And they'll give background with the photo and the history behind this specific hairstyle and why they braided this way and why it would look this way and all of that. And for me, I enjoy following pages like that kind of educate you in different cultures, but also the history behind it and the why. And also I'm a history freak, and I just like seeing what things used to be like. So yeah, I think it's really interesting, and just the historical photography is also really nice.
Okay, so make sure you send me the IG page, and I'll put it in the caption that you don't read. And finally, and it's not a question, I have a little gift for you. So, first of all, I thank you for your time here. You helped me I said it. You were the co-producer of my first episode with Eden from Black Foodie. But I have a little gift for you here, which is a spicy salt.
Yes.
So LVDD is my partner for my guest gift.
Love it.
And yeah, so lvdd.ch for all the European audience, and he has different kind of products, all based, well, all spicy, sorry, oil, hot sauce. He has different spices that he made for meat, fish, for your barbecue. Anything that you need to spice your food is there. So lvdd.ch.
I've used them before, so
Yeah.
love it.
Exactly. Helen, thank you. Do you have anything you wanted to say? Anything?
No, I thought you had another question. A question for the next guest.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Co-producer.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, sorry. So your question for the next guest.
So the question I would ask next guest is, what's a question you've always wanted to ask either or both your parents?
Wow. Okay. Well, I'll bring this one for my guest number 3 that will be recorded in a few days. But yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Anything to add to your Swiss audience, the one who like your introduction voice?
I was going to say, you're tuned in to the dedicated podcast.
She did it live. Well, you start with what's up, y'all.
Oh yeah, what's up? What's up, y'all?
That's fine. Helen, thank you a million times.
Thank you.
And well, for everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed the episodes. You can always add the 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can even put comments on Spotify now. And the IG page is dedicated_podcast. Voilà. Thank you, Helen.
Of course.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.